Hey, good morning, guys. I'm really excited. I want to shout this, but it's 3:30 in the morning, and I don't want to wake up my wife. So hopefully you can hear me because I'm going to try and talk low or lower than I normally do. Um, Before I went to bed last night, I read a news report on a miracle that happened at World Youth Day. Now, I've only been back to the Catholic Church 8 years. But if anybody knows why they call it World Youth Day, but it's like a 5-day event, let me know. But that aside, I just want to read the report for you because I want it to be accurate. And I just want to give you my quick thoughts. So this is from Spirit Daily. It's a Catholic website. Doesn't give the woman's name. It just says this young woman from Madrid has recovered her vision this morning in Fatima. This is how she has told us in the COPE microphones. At 16 years old, she suffered a loss of vision due to myopia for more than 2 years until only 5% was left. She couldn't use her mobile phone. All through the audience, she explained to us excitedly. After all this time without being able to recover, they decided to pray a novena to the Virgin de las Nieves, whose festival is celebrated on August 5th. We have been praying for this for a long time, and it has coincided with World Youth Day. We asked all the young people to ask for my healing, and today, after receiving communion, I see perfectly. She was blind, but now she sees. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. God still does miracles for his people. I see perfectly. I do not know how to explain to you. The Eucharist was celebrated after the Rosary of Pope Francis in Fatima, who, after entering the Chapel of Apparitions, venerated the image of the Virgin Mary of Fatima and stopped praying before her for a few moments in silence. God still does miracles, and it's so exciting. I mean, I just want to give you a short list here. If you watch me for some time, you've probably heard a lot of this. But if you haven't, God has used Pope Francis in some mighty ways, like in supernatural miracles that fake news is going to ignore, of course, but we don't ignore it here. So if you haven't heard of some of the miracles, and the list is way bigger than this, but I'm just going to give you a quick rundown because they have some listed on this website here. Performing miracles is nothing new to Pope Francis. Last March, authorities attested that he turned the dry blood of Saint Gennaro into liquid in Naples, Italy. Just last month, before he began his visits to Cuba and the U.S., Pope Francis abruptly stopped his motorcade in the rain and asked his aide to bring to him the baby he saw being lifted at the barricade by her parents. Pope briefly placed his hand on the chest of a three-month-old who was suffering from Down syndrome and two holes in her heart. Later, when the doctors checked the baby, they found one hole had completely closed and the other one was reduced to its former size. And then the story about the little baby in Philadelphia where he kissed her head and the tumor shrunk. I've told that story several times here. And but the greatest miracle at World Youth Day was forgiveness of sins. I think it was G.K. Chesterton said when he was asked, "Why'd you become Catholic?" He said, "To have my sins forgiven." And I seen pictures of Pope Francis giving confessions to young people. And I seen a couple interviews, and these young people were touched. They confessed sins that they would never tell anybody, and they felt freedom. We have a servant leader as a pope, and that's what Jesus taught. When he washed the feet of his apostles, he came to serve us. That's the kind of leader we have. But you see, I've been like super busy, so I haven't really been watching too many YouTube videos, but things pop up and I see titles, and all I've seen is like negativity about World Youth Day. I didn't see nothing positive. A lot of youth, I don't know if it's millions or tens of thousands, but I just see the pictures. A lot of young people are going to spend time with God and encounter God. And the Pope is giving confessions like one-on-one to these young people. And all I'm reading about is, oh, how they're doing this wrong and they're doing that wrong. And today in my devotion this morning, the Lord led me to John chapter 5. I recommend you read John chapter 5. This is where Jesus went to that healing pool, and he's seen a man that's been there for 30 years, and he's healed him. He said, stand, pick up your pallet and walk. You know, and he also told the man to sin no more. Like Pope Francis, someone was healed in his presence. God used Pope Francis, but he gave confession. You see, it goes hand in hand. Physical healing is a sign of the spiritual healing that we need. You know, it gets people's attention. That's why God used it with the apostles and with the Lord, and he's using it today to those who believe, you know. But like in Jesus's day, if you read John chapter 5, the religious people of the day were appalled because he did this on the Sabbath. He didn't follow the rules. And that's all I hear is people getting on Pope Francis in the church for not following the rules the way they see the rules should be. You know, when I left Protestantism and became a Catholic, I thought the church's hierarchy had authority. You know, they could bind and loose and all that. But apparently the people on YouTube know better than the Pope and the church. And I haven't seen this miracle anywhere other than this article I read last night. Just like all these other miracles I always talk about, you never hear about it. All you always hear about is what Pope Francis is doing wrong. And so I just want to say, don't be like the Pharisees. Don't be like these religious people, you know. Jesus said if they hated me, they're going to hate you. If you wonder why so many people hate Pope Francis, is maybe because he's a lot like Jesus, you know. When he was a bishop, he was known as the bishop of the slums. You know, a lot of these bishops live in nice homes and they have it pretty good if they want it, you know. Just like any job, you can pretty much give it your all or, you know, skate through it. Pope Francis would take buses. You know, a lot of these rich YouTubers probably never were on a bus. I grew up in Jersey on buses all the time. And half the time, the air conditioning doesn't work. And in the summer, it's miserable. But I would take the bus for a couple miles. They said Pope Francis would have to take buses for hours to go deep into the slums of Argentina. Deep into the slums of Argentina. To hear confessions, to minister to the poor. And there was a big problem, and probably is still today, with this drug called Paco. And what it was a cheap version of cocaine. They would take the residue of cocaine, mix the gangs, mix it with kerosene, rat poison, and every other horrible chemical to give these guys a high. But it was so cheap that the gangs would give it away for free to the kids of the slum, these young kids in the slum, because you use it for one day and you're hooked. And then they would recruit the kids to sell their drugs and do their other deeds. And Pope Francis would go to these families. He would spend hours on a hot bus to go into the slums and minister. And, you know, one woman said she was so embarrassed because her son was addicted. And Pope Francis just loved her and ministered to her and prayed with her. He met her where she was at, and he met the son where he was at. What a great example, you know? And, you know, there's a lot to be excited about. You know, Pope Francis's pontificate, the past 10 years, he's been Pope for about 10 years. The population of the world has grown like 9%, but the population of the Catholic Church has grown 9.8%. And this is when I have many videos about the Methodists losing 5,000 churches, you know, the Baptists losing like 450,000 members. Most organized religions, especially in Christianity, are losing people to nuns, you know. None of the above, like they're not religious. But the Catholic Church is growing, you know. Be happy that you're in the church that Jesus Christ told Peter, the gates of hell will not prevail. There's always going to be haters. The Pharisees hated Jesus. Martin Luther hated the Pope at his time. Marcel Lefebvre hated St. Pope John Paul II. There's always going to be haters. There's always going to be criticism. But look to Jesus and follow those that are following Jesus. Jesus did miracles. Jesus healed. And the Bible says that for God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, so that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world. John 3:16 and 3:17. Read those verses today as well. I would read the whole book of John. It's probably my favorite book in the entire Bible, the Gospel of John. So I'm going to finish reading my devotion, John chapter 5. I kind of took a break because I was so excited to say this. And then I'm going to drink my coffee. I haven't even had my coffee yet. So God bless and stay Catholic.